And so every step we take in that facility, whether it be a crate, whether it be moving animals down the hallway, whether it be giving a vaccination or whatever that is, we're doing it for the best possible care for the animal. We're creating the best quality meat for the consumer, and we're doing it in a way that makes sense for all parties involved.
This is Trevor Williams, and welcome to the Farm Traveler Podcast, the podcast for anybody curious about where their food comes from. Row cropping isn't easy, neither is pork production, and motherhood surely isn't a walk in the park either. Now imagine doing all three. In our interview today, Kylie Epperson will share how she balances all her responsibilities on the farm, as well as producing a podcast called Midwest Farm Wives. With pork production, there are many misconceptions about farrowing crates that Kylie will address and explain the purpose behind them, as well as how they care for all of their livestock. In addition, she'll explain how the farms work with seed and chemical companies, while also making sure her kids are learning valuable lessons like hard work and critical thinking. Kylie also has advice on what farmers can do to share their story to consumers, like not comparing yourself and being true to your story. This is Farm Traveler Podcast, episode 48 with Kylie Epperson. All right, well, Kylie Epperson, welcome to the Farm Traveler Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are kind of a fellow ag podcaster. You and your family raise pigs. You grow corn, soybeans, all that good stuff. So tell us a little bit about your background, kind of where you're at and what your operation is like.
Yeah, of course. So as you said, my name is Kylie Epperson. I'm married to a fourth generation farmer here in Northeast Missouri. We raise corn and soybeans on our row crop rotation. And then we also have a sizable hog operation. We have a 1,200 head farrow to finish, which means we own the sows and we have the babies and we grow them all the way up to market weight in one side of our hog operation. And then on our other, we have a 5,000 head farrow to wean operation, which is we own the sows, they have babies, and then we ship them up to Iowa. And by ship, I mean we haul them. We don't, ship them. That sounds like an odd way to say that. But we send them up to Iowa, where then they are finished out to market weight as well. I joined the farm. I went to school to be a teacher. And I live in a rural community, but I've never thought that I would be a farmer, that's for sure. So I went to school to be a teacher, did that for a year, married my husband in that time span. And he said, hey, we're going to grow our hog operation. You should come back and help out with that. Do the book work. It was just going to be a big feat. And we were going to have to hire someone to do that. And so it made sense for me to come back sooner rather than later. In the meantime, we had our son, Rhett. He is now 4. Dang, he's getting old. And then we've just grown our operation. Jordan and I have taken over our row crop operation entirely as of last year. And we are just kind of rolling with the flow.
Not bad. That sounds pretty fun. So what did you teach whenever you were teaching for a year?
High school history.
Okay,
social studies.
Cool. Do you miss it at all?
I missed maybe the social aspect of working outside of the farm, with just, our immediate family. But as far as going to school every day, I don't necessarily miss that part.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I taught for only 2 years and I kind of miss the social aspects of it all and some of the kids, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And those kids are gone now. So, I mean,
yeah. So we haven't really had anybody on about pork production yet. And I mean, it's really cool. I went to University of Florida and we went to the pork production lab there and it was kind of cool. So kind of talk us through how the whole pork production thing works. Like you said, you raise them either fair to finish or fair to wean. So how does the whole process work? Like they give birth, how long does it take to raise them and all that stuff?
Oh, okay. You're really putting me on the spot here because I'm not,
no pressure.
I'm not the pork expert, but I will do my very best to give the most basic review or, educational experience about pork production. So in the pork industry in the United States, let's just first say that we are raising the most high quality, most amazing meat that we could produce in the world. The United States produces amazing beef, pork, chicken, turkey, all of the proteins that we're creating are not only raised in very humane and sustainable ways, but they're just being taken care of by the most amazing people. So we'll get that out of the way. But what happens in hog operations, generally, you either are a contract finisher or a contract grower, or you're an independent. And currently, we are independent. So that means we own all of our hogs ourselves. And independent growers are starting to become fewer and fewer, especially with the downturn in the hog market right now. It just makes more sense to be a contract grower. And so basically, the only difference is that if you're independent, you own your own hogs. If you're a contract, someone else owns them and you still take care of them. So we own our own hogs, and we built in the late 90s, my father-in-law and his family built a 1,200 head sow unit. And so that means we have 1,200 mom pigs, and they are bred, and the gestation period where they're pregnant is approximately, it's the rule of 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. And then they farrow in a separate barn. They're moved and they have their baby pigs. And the pigs stay on them anywhere from 21 to 24 days on average. And then those baby pigs are weaned and moved to a nursery facility. That's how our operation works. And they stay in the nursery for about 6 weeks, where they are fed specialty diets for their specific sizes. They get a starter ration, and then those progress. And then they're moved to finisher barns, where then they'll stay for, and I would be put on the spot. They stay until 280 pounds, but the length of time in the finisher is escaping me.
Okay, gotcha. That's a pretty big pig, 280 pounds.
Yeah, that's what the market demands right now, is that, we have gone from a very fatty pig in the past to a very lean pig now. But that's a really good average weight. And they're going to be anywhere from, that 260 to 310, but 280 is that goal average weight for your load.
Okay, gotcha. Now, and not to put you on the spot again, but I know that there's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to, basically anything ag-related. And I know a lot of people don't really know the purpose of farrowing crates, and they probably see pictures of like the mama pig and the piglets, and they're like, oh, that's such a confined space. But I mean, the farrowing crates exist to protect the piglets from like getting crushed by the mom, right?
Yeah, we have a couple of different, in both of our operations, they're both different. In our old operation, we have a standard farrowing crate. And so that's going to save the baby pigs from being laid on. And it's really just, it allows us to give that sow individualized care during the farrowing process, because some of them have to be helped with their labor. They have food and water readily available in front of their faces at all times. And then, like you said, those first few days, especially, those pigs aren't really up and going fast enough to get out of the way. And so it kind of keeps her in her area. It lets the pigs grow. And then in our other operation, we have turnaround farrowing crates, which is kind of new. And that farrowing crate is locked in like your old style farrowing crate. And it stays there for 72 hours. And then the back of the crate opens, and that allows the mom to turn around, but still gives the baby pigs areas where the mom can't get to them. Mom pigs can also be savage in the sense that they can eat their young, which I think a lot of animals have that potential to do that. And so it just offers safety for those baby pigs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally does. Yeah, when I was at the animal science department at UF, we went to the pork production unit and we saw some of those crates. So we saw firsthand that the mama pig getting down, and some little piglets about got crushed before they got out of the way. And so, I mean, it's really cool that those systems are kind of designed to kind of protect both the mama and the piglets.
Yeah. And I've had to help moms actually have their babies before. You would help the process along. If the baby can't come out, there's always a technician there to help that process along. And that's one additional way to keep everyone safe. The mom, the employee, the pigs, it just works. It makes a lot of sense in the pork production system.
Besides like farrowing crates and gestation crates, are there any kind of like normal misconceptions that you guys see that consumers have about pork production?
I think number one, and this kind of spans across the livestock industry, is that the people taking care of the livestock, no matter in what facility or what way, is that there's some disconnect about how much money we would like to make and how we care for the animals. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think people think that we are, raising livestock because we want to become these rich farmers, that's our goal. And sure, don't get me wrong, I would love to have a prosperous business that financially supports our family. Absolutely. But in the same breath, we care so greatly about the well-being of our animals. And so every step we take in that facility, whether it be a crate, whether it be moving animals down the hallway, whether it be giving a vaccination or whatever that is. We're doing it for the best possible care for the animal. We're creating the best quality meat for the consumer, and we're doing it in a way that makes sense for all parties involved.
Totally agree. I mean, probably more than anybody else, a mistreated animal is not going to put on weight and it's not going to produce. So that's why you've got to take very good care of them. So that's a really good point. So I'm stealing this from your Instagram page. So you also grow corn, soybeans, and 2 kiddos.
Yes.
So what's that like? I mean, farmers have a super busy life, and I can't imagine being a farm mom on top of that. So what's that like, kind of growing some crops and also raising some kids at the same time?
It's interesting, the situation that my husband and I are in. I really truly am both the, 50-50 in the home life, but then also the 50-50 in the business. I have a big role on our farm too. And I will say that it gets to be a lot at times, especially during planting and harvest. But we're lucky to have a really good team that works for us, our employees, and even our added associates, with our seed company and our chemical dealer. All of those people play a really big piece in getting our crop planted and getting our crop out and educating us on the right way to raise that particular area. As far as raising kids, you kind of do that on your own and you learn as you go. It's stressful, I'm not going to lie at times, but it is really the best way to raise kids. I was not raised on a farm, but I'm really, really happy that my kids get to learn the cycle of life. I'm happy that they get to learn and be outside a lot. All of those things, just hard work. It's just a good way to raise kids.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I don't have kids yet, but I love seeing farmers, especially like Jatana and Natalie from Ranch Wise Beef Company.
Yes.
They have their kids all the time, like out on the tractors, out messing with the cows. And it's just really cool to kind of see them grow up in that environment.
Yeah, and we don't get to take them out quite that much. We live on our own home farm, but we don't live on our home base, like where we operate out of. So they don't actually get to go out as much. Plus, oh man, you always hear those tragic accidents of like tractor trailers and different things when kids. And so they just don't get to go out quite as much because they're 4 and 2. But I know as they get older, it will be like tag along with dad and mom to work and they'll be full-time farm kids for sure.
Gotcha. Well, are they kind of getting around that stage where they're figuring out what they want to do and they want to be farmers when they grow up?
They do a lot of carpet farming in the house. Yes.
Oh,
I think
cool.
they'll be at least tractor and truck drivers as they get older. And then when they, get old enough to make a decision on college or whatever that is, we'll support them in any way. But we obviously hope that they follow in our footsteps.
Oh yeah, kind of following the family business. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you also have a podcast. It's called Midwest Farm Wives Podcast with your friend Whitney. So how did you two kind of start the podcast and where did that inspiration come from?
Well, what a great question. So one part that I left out about our history, and I'll just give a quick little plug to it. On our new sow unit, we built it in 2014. That's when I came back to the farm in 13-14. And in 2018, it actually completely burnt to the ground. So it was both of our buildings. We lost our hogs. We fortunately did not lose any of our employees. And it was one of those times when you're saying, why did this happen? God, really? Why did this happen? And why did it happen to us? This building was brand new. We poured our hearts and our souls into building this building and raising these animals. And we'd had a little bit of disease. It was just all of these things. And then it burns down. Like, why does something like that happen? So from that time, I feel like something switched in my mind to start telling the story of ag because we felt so passionately about what we had lost. And I don't know, just I started really observing consumer demands and hearing that story of what people wanted to learn about agriculture. And I thought, I'm just going to start telling you about it. So I started talking and really sharing on both Facebook and Instagram, and I met Whitney. And Whitney is my co-host. I shouldn't say my co-host. We are co-hosts together. And she said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Who wants to do this with me? And I immediately said, maybe me. I don't know. And we just started chatting back and forth, and we realized quickly that it was a perfect fit, that we had a lot of like-minded ideas and goals for our social media. And we said, let's try to offer something that particularly women, wives, mothers, ag women, really any of that genre, give them something to listen to and relate to. And so we did.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it seems like it's been very successful. I mean, you guys have been talking about a lot of really cool stuff. And I imagine after that barn fire that it was kind of therapeutic, kind of talk about what you went through and kind of help you share your story afterwards.
Well, it is. And there's so many times in the ag industry that you say, why did this happen? Drought, flooding, just one of your prize show cow dies. There's all of these times that you go through and you think, why did this happen? And you just have to really know that there's a bigger picture and that you're working towards something else. And we would never be where we are today without that fire. And I would never be as open as I am today without the podcast. And so everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that, whether we like it or not. And I love the podcast, and it really has gone overwhelmingly well. People can resonate with it, and we like that a lot.
Yeah, so y'all have talked about things like mental health. You've also collaborated with the Rural Women podcast. What has kind of been the most impactful subject that you guys have kind of touched base on?
I would say, mental health is always something that people can understand, because I think everyone knows or has been affected by mental health issues at some point. Mm-hmm. I would say our most listened to episode was our seasonal single mom episode. And that was kind of a candid title, not meant to offend anyone. But we did get a little bit of backlash on that, just because we don't feel like we're single mothers or wives during harvest and planting, but you definitely feel like you're doing a lot of it on your own, and also running the farm, part of the farm, the bookwork and what you need to do there. And that's definitely been our most listened to and talked about episode.
That's really neat. It kind of boils down to like different podcasts that the most popular ones are usually the ones that are kind of interesting, that get some like traction from people, because some people like it, some people don't, but that usually turns out to be the most popular one. That's for sure.
Yeah. Most listened to. Popular. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, the most listened to. That's true. That's a good point. So, I mean, what are some future plans that you guys have for the podcast? Do you want to have more guests on? Do you want to talk about other subject matters? What are some future goals you have for it?
We've tried to start reaching out a little bit to a wider audience, because right off the bat, we're targeting women and we take off half of that audience. But we do think there's a lot of value for men who want to listen, maybe to see insight into a woman's mind a little bit, because we do think a little differently. And on this podcast, we really truly open up about our feelings and how we're having a hard time here, or we're having a great time here, and this is how we feel about this situation. So I'd say we're trying to open the topics to a wider audience. We will continue to have guests on, of course. We usually find a topic we love, and then on every other episode, we find someone, generally through social media, that we think would also be able to speak to that same topic. As far as anything else, we're just kind of rolling with the punches and trying to continue, being that person in our own individual lives. And this is just like an added bonus. And so we're excited to continue to see where it takes us.
That's really neat. I'm excited to see where it goes. So going back around when you kind of learned that you need to share your story and share the story of ag, what advice do you have for people that are maybe considering getting more active on social media or starting a podcast, and they basically want to share their story and how agriculture has impacted it?
I think the first thing is just do it. Just do it. Even if it means that in your Instagram full of your kids or your dog or your pets, put in one post. I think the biggest thing that we go through as individuals is that we're fearful of the unknown. What is someone going to think of me? What is the right way to share this? And I want to just be the first to say that there's no right way. There's no cookie cutter way to share your story, because it's yours and you share it how you want to. So just do it. Just take the leap and share one thing. And maybe that becomes one of your farm stories a week. And then maybe it warps into one a day. And then maybe you start a podcast with your friend you met on social media. And then you're here talking on another podcast. It just starts to domino effect, and it gets better and better. My other piece of advice on social media is that it can be the best thing, or it can be the most horrible thing to make you feel bad about yourself. So if you're sharing and you see all of these other people sharing their farm story, again, it's your story. You can't compare with theirs. And it goes for that in your whole entire life. So if you find someone who is just killing being a farm wife and a farm mom and you admire them, that doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong or not enough. You're doing what's best for you. I feel like I warped into a whole different conversation there. We could talk for an hour, but you just have to just do it for one, and then don't compare yourself to others for number two.
No, that's really good advice. I mean, be like Nike and just do it. I mean, yeah, like I'm curious on sharing my message out there and everything that we learned during the podcast, but it is difficult because you see people that have like tens of thousands of followers, and like our Instagram right now only has 500. So sometimes you're like, well, is it even worth it? But I mean, it is worth it to kind of get your message out there. I mean, we all have our very own unique take on what we're doing in ag, and I think it's all very important that we all share and like listen to each other's stories. That's really good advice. I like it.
Yeah, comparison is the biggest killer of joy. And that is my favorite quote in my entire life. Like when I start feeling low about myself, I really examine, why am I feeling so bad? And generally it's because I'm comparing what I'm doing to someone else, and you just can't. You just can't. So I love learning about other people's operation, especially other ag. Like I feel like I'm pretty knowledgeable about corn, soybeans, and hogs, but learning about beef cattle or dairy cattle, anything, it's all so interesting to me. And I love learning from other people on social media. It makes it so easy to learn.
Oh yeah, it does. I mean, people are so active. I mean, like for example, you probably follow him, Derek Josie. I mean, he's very active in sharing his story and what he does dairy farming up in Oregon. And you can learn every day something new about the dairy industry, which is really cool.
Yep. I love it so much. I also find that when you're really true to yourself and you're not trying to be somebody that you're not, people pick up on that. And they, when I have a true to myself post, I may get more follows from that, or I may get more shares, or I get more people reaching out saying that is the dang truth, things like that. So just be yourself. Don't try to be somebody that you're not.
Be authentic. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Good advice. Well, Kylie, this has been cool learning about your message, your pork production, growing corn, soybeans, and your kiddos. If people want to follow you, I know you're active on Instagram. Where can they go and kind of see you share your message and see like kind of your life and what's going on?
Yeah, of course. My personal Instagram is The Grateful Farm Wife. You can find me there every day. Very, very rarely miss a day. We also have a joint page for the podcast, and it's Midwest Farm Wives. And then I'm also on Facebook at Epperson Farms or Epperson Family Farms. You can find me. It'll take you to the same page. And then I have a blog, The Grateful Farm Wife.
Well, we will absolutely put all that stuff in the link for this podcast so everybody can check it out. Kylie, thanks so much for being on. Excited to see kind of what you do in the future and kind of how your farm's going on. We appreciate you being on. Thanks for all the kind words. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode with Kylie Epperson. Be sure to check her out at the links in the description of this podcast. And a quick call to action to all of our listeners. If you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed the show, consider sharing with your friends and family. Word of mouth helps us out a ton and helps us reach a larger audience to help kind of bridge the gap between farmers and consumers. You know the deal. So thanks for listening. Be sure to share it. We appreciate it. Check us out again on our website, thefarmtraveler.com, and we will see you in our next episode.